back to local publishers. We have Lily Mullen in Wyoming, who is buying newspapers up as fast as he can. And Jeremy Golbin, who's one of our members of Cherry Road, is buying up local community newspapers back from Gannett. So our membership has been strong. And a lot of papers are going digital. We have print and digital, and we have some that are going straight to digital. And that's a good thing, that's fine, but we still encourage our newspapers that are in print to promote their print product. We want our publishers to show their community why they love to see that newspaper in their mailbox. For those that have been gone digital, I actually had 2 people contact me, one last week in Virginia, and a woman contacted me this week from Texas, and the paper in their community went all digital, and they missed their print product. And so they both, the first question they asked me is, can you help me with a printer? Matt Paxton helped this man in Virginia, and one of our other publishers helped this woman in Texas, and they want to start a newspaper in the community just so that they get that print product again. So it's important to us. NNA helped our members, keeping them informed of the opportunities to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program, and many of our members received 100% forgiveness. We worked with the Small Business Association to make sure that printing expenses could be included as covered as a cost for the PPP. And with the Employee Retention Tax Credit, we helped our newspapers with gross revenue losses in 2020 and 2021. A lot of newspapers left money on the table. You're not going to get it unless you file. It's not too late to file. We're working on the restoration of the 4th quarter tax credit for 2021. As for advertising, NNA, in association with our foundation, every other year we do a readership study through Susquehanna Polling, and the results were wonderful. We are still trusted. Community newspapers are still trusted. They still rely on a community newspaper for advertising. That is our press release on our website, whether you're a member or a non-member. If you are a member of NNA, there's house ads, and more stats behind the member wall, but Tom Silvestri was very generous and created house ads that anyone can use, member or non-member, using stats press release on that readership study, and it will help, we think, boost advertising and trust in newspapers. As for federal advertising, federal agencies spent billions promoting their programs, billions, and especially HHS with COVID, wanting to reach communities, and community newspapers didn't see any of it. We had a meeting with one of the programs that placed these ads, and we said, why aren't you, we're the people that you're trying to reach. Our community newspapers are. We're the ones you're trying to reach. Why didn't any of these billions of advertising dollars go to our community newspapers? And they said, well, they did. And they listed the Charlotte paper, and they listed, like, those aren't community newspapers. And so we have taken on a contract with Cogent Strategies. They were a powerhouse in DC, and we are making it our mission to educate those on Capitol Hill what a community newspaper is, how we reach the people they are trying to reach, so that we can get some of these advertising dollars. So hopefully we'll be reporting on that soon. As always, NNA is about postal. And it has been a priority to make mail delivery cheaper and better. We have created a task force. We meet every other week. Matt Paxton and Tom Brad Hill with Interlink, and several of our members we've taken on as case studies, and we meet with postal officials, and we're trying to figure out where in the delivery process newspapers are being delayed. And it's been very interesting. It's educating for me because I'm learning more about postal. But out of this came our proposal to the USPS to create a new subclass within periodicals to help printers prepare mail for the speediest delivery, and we're going to start testing that soon. We created the Max Heath Postal Institute in honor of our good friend Max Heath, which we miss so much. And this is to educate our members on the changing periodical rules and requirements. We've had 4 webinars so far. There's 8 in the series. You can get a certification process. We've had 30 people sign up for certification. And that's, you have to go through all 3 webinars. They are archived on the website, and you get a certificate at the end of it that you're an expert in postal issues. And that is members and non-members of NNA. And they've been amazing. The best part is at the end of each webinar, we have question and answer, and that lasts, I just am every day so proud of my team at NNA that they can answer these questions on the spot and help these people with their postal issues. NNA also combined forces with the News Media Alliance for a joint policy group to assist their members with postal issues. And most importantly, this year with the Public Service Reform Act of 2022, NNA is helping newspapers to prospect new subscribers. So at this time, I'd like to invite Sharon Burton with the Adair County Community Voice and Al Cross to join me, please. It was not easy for NNA to get this new law. Tonda, if you ask Tonda how long she's been working on this, and as soon as we got it, the first thing we said is we wish Max was here. Yep. Max was here. Yep. But this new law allowing within county newspapers, you can send up to 50% of their copies to non-subscribers. The previous was 10%, and this was the first new major mailing privilege for periodicals since 1878. That's how important this was. So NNA has great activists in our Congressional Action Team. If you don't belong to it, come talk to me. I'll add you to the list. These are the people that make a difference in DC. When we have something that we need to do, they're on the ground, and Sharon was one of those people, and we cannot thank her enough. She took on this project and helped persuade Congressman Jamie Comer of the Kentucky's 1st District to help us, and with the help of Sharon, Al Cross, Kentucky Press Association's David Thompson, and our very good friends and Kentucky publishers, we won and we got this. So in honor of that, I would like to award Sharon the National Newspaper Association Congressional Action Team Community Newspaper Champion Award. And Al, Community Newspaper Champion Award. We couldn't have done it without Kentucky, so thank you very much.
Want to say something?
Oh, well, I did not know this was coming, so thank you very much. I appreciate this. I really enjoyed being part of that. And I will say that I'm going to brag on my congressman because he made the commitment early on to try to keep that in the bill, and he was able to do so, and it meant a lot to us. But I also enjoyed watching to see our industry on a national level be active, and that was a lot of fun, and it was great being part of that. So thank you for the opportunity. And it's good stuff, too. I'm so excited. I actually spoke at a seminar via Zoom in Texas and talked to newspaper people about how they can take advantage of this 50%. And got a lot of questions. So there's newspapers that have not been doing this at all, even with the 10%. So hopefully we'll start seeing this opportunity to be used to help market and get new readership. And I make money on mine. I'll just tell you, we like doing it.
Thank you, Sharon. And I give Sharon almost all the credit for this. Congressman Comer called me up and said, Sharon Burton had me on a call about this sample copying thing. What do you think about it? I said, I'm all for it. And we got it done. So thanks very much for taking the lead.
Al, can we get a picture of you guys? Lynn, can you get up there?
Got a mug for some pictures, Sharon.
Yes.
Come on, let's
Yeah.
line it up again.
Scoot away from the...
Robert, take that. Mike? There we go. Okay. It's all yours, Robert.
I don't start over, do I? The interesting thing about this is just because it's not new does not mean it's not important. What we're seeing in many areas obviously is tougher because there's more competition there, but competition is nothing new to community newspapers. I mean, we look back and see that everybody said radio was going to kill newspapers, TV was going to kill newspapers, cable TV was going to kill newspapers, shoppers were going to kill newspapers. All those things happened, have come, and some of them have gone. And newspapers, by and large, are still here. They survived, and many of them are growing. I've owned 9 newspapers over my career in rural South Georgia, in rural North Florida, and I can tell you that it's not easy to be a newspaper in a small rural market, as most of you already know. But it is possible, and there's several factors I want to talk about. That let's see if I can figure out how to make this slide advance.
There you go.
There we go. Newspapers. The key to it, of course, newspapers must become more vital to small-town business partners for success, and this is nothing new either. The key to success in this community, in any community, for any newspaper, is to becoming a partner, a compatriot with their local businesses, to know that when their local businesses succeed, the local newspapers succeed. You know, when you look at an area that's, whether it's growing or whether it's stagnant, and it has great churches, and it has great schools, and it has great health care, and it has great people, but it doesn't have a newspaper, what do you call a place like that? You know what a place like that are called? They're called subdivisions. There's lots of those in America. They're called subdivisions. But the key that makes those people come together and see themselves as a community, makes all the mesh, makes all those subdivisions come together and work together and look at what they can do together, is the community newspaper. The community newspaper is the difference. And just like if you got a good newspaper, it's hard for any newspaper to ever rise above the quality of the community it operates in. And if you don't believe that, you look around. There's very few towns that have really, really good newspapers that don't have a really good town behind them. There are a few exceptions, but that's not the normal thing. Let's see. Next slide. There's 2 ways to make your newspaper indispensable to community merchants. Part of what I do, as I retired, I'm working with the National Newspaper Association, and I have one purpose, and that is to look around. There's find newspapers in all over America that are being successful in being partners with their local merchants. And the way they do that is they do by being innovative and by being creative. And that's nothing new. But over the years, the newspapers that have been successful are the newspapers that are innovative and creative and help their local merchants also think in innovative and creative ways to do better to attract their local community, to build their business in their community. Next slide, please. Offer packages that include print and digital. I want to give two things that I found in my research, talking to newspapers all over the country, and the ones that I find, the newspapers that are combining print, solid print advertising, along with digital advertising. People think, well, the internet has come along and has robbed us, and the people who have figured out a way to use the internet as a tool, as a companion, to work solidly right along with a good print newspaper, those are the ones who are finding success. The local merchants who realize, when you walk into a local merchant and you tell them, I can offer you good print advertising, I can also offer you digital advertising all in one package, their eyes light up, because that's what they're looking for. That's what somebody who can solve the dilemma of saying, how do I spend my marketing money? I don't know whether to spend it on digital, I don't know where to spend it. I can spend it in one with the local newspaper who can provide me great print advertising and also great digital advertising to accompany it. Those who can do that can be successful. That's one way. The second way, can I turn, next slide please? Sponsored content. In sponsored content, I've been selling sponsored content in my town for 50 years. You know, well, I used to call it advertorials. And many of you have done that too. But I've never seen anything like what's going on now in so many communities across America who are seeing sponsored content as something that every community will latch onto if you give them the opportunity. You go into any local merchant and you tell them, say, look, would you like to have a great story about your business that tells about how long you've been here and what you do and all the products you offer and all that? And you can, when it gets ready to go in the paper, you can read it. You can say if every word about it is correct. You can edit it. We'll make it read exactly like you want it to read. We'll make it look exactly like you want it to look. People have always wanted to do that in the newspaper, but we wouldn't do it in the past because of, you all know why. But digital sponsored content is a way to give the local merchant what they really have wanted and desired for so long. Now we can give it to them with clearly labeled sponsored content. Newspapers who are innovative enough to realize they can take this tool and interest their local merchants, then they can they walk in their local merchants and also they can get attention about the local merchants spending their money with the local newspaper because we're giving them what they want. Not just what they need, but what they also want. That's important. And I'm not sure if I got another slide. Have I got another slide behind that? I can't remember what I had here.
Just kick one more, we'll go to the original. There you go.
Okay, all right.
Any questions for Robert?
All right, questions. Anybody got questions?
Well, he'll be around
Yes.
for the rest of the, got one over here from Terry Finneman.
Yes.
Let's get a mic to her. Dr. Terry Finneman of the University of Kansas will be presenting tomorrow.
Yes, Terry.
With the sponsored content, is that being written by the business, by the advertising staff? Who wrote that story?
It varies from paper to paper. Most papers I've found have got an established person who will write that for the merchant. If you wait for merchants can never be sure they get it right. You know, again, that's just like advertising. You go into a merchant and you tell them you want an ad and you don't want your merchant to sit down and spend hours agonizing over what it's going to say and how it's going to look. That's not their business. That's not what they're trained to do. It's what we're trained to do. What we got to do is we got to interview them, write it all out, be sure we get all the facts correct, take it to them, let them proofread it, be sure it's correct, make any changes they see necessary, and get it just like they want it, then they're going to be a happy camper. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I think that brings up an important point for all of the academics in the room, because we have so many advertising students who complain about being in news writing, who aren't required to take reporting classes, and how those are important skills for our StratCom students to have as well.
You're exactly right, because again, it's with most community newspaper, everybody needs to be a generalist. We don't have room to afford specialists. We need people who can do whatever needs to be done. And that's what I found. The most successful people in the community newspaper business are the people who can do everything. That's what I did from day one. That's what the person I first started working for in my high school let me do everything at the paper. Let me do almost everything there. And that trained me to go run my own operation later on. Next, any other question? Yes, ma'am.
How, you said one of the keys to success is selling the print and digital packages together. How does that line up with what Penny gave about the statistics about 60% drop in the ad sales positions at papers? I mean, so there's a push and pull that's where they're going to end up cutting, but you're saying investing in that is the key to success.
There certainly is, and part of what I found, those who are having success at selling print and digital, when I sold packages at my newspaper, and what I found was we sold print and digital together, and one of the most gratifying things I found was we put, and when I say sell digital, we sold advertising on our website, we sold advertising on our Facebook page, and when you tell people you sell advertising on on your Facebook page, on the newspaper's Facebook page, and then also give it to them to put on their Facebook page, they love that. And that's one of the things we found out. And when you tell people you can do that for them, and they don't have to do anything. One payment, and all that's taken care of at one time. People love that. That's what I find. Did I answer your question? Yes, ma'am.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you. I love the great idea exchange.
Thank you.
I look at it faithfully, and I spoke at a conference at a session at the Kentucky Press Association, and we were talking about special sections and promotions and that type of thing, and I referenced that people need to look at that because there's so many great ideas. We don't have a lot of original ideas in our world these days, but we can creatively adapt others, and that's what you can do with that, make it work for yourself. I love it.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Let's give Robert a hand.
Thank you.
Please welcome Tom Silvestri from the Relevance Project.
You know, Penny, I'm starting to get worried. I think after hearing your statistics, there's probably more people trying to help the newspaper business than in the newspaper business. I used to be, as a publisher, I used to walk around and say, if you're not writing a story, you're not selling advertising, what the hell are you doing? So maybe we should just stop and go to the nearest newspaper and follow tomorrow's edition. I don't know. So let me talk about an aspect of the Relevance Project. I got so many, I only have two hands up here. That's a component of it because it's a real neat project. I'll give you a quick overview and then I'll get into something I feel really passionate about because Al teed it up with something called the public square.
There we go.
Thank you very much. Do I get the treatment where I can say next slide too if I screw up? Good, good. Is that one finger or five fingers in the back? Okay, sorry. All right, come on, guys, loosen up. You're gonna have to. If you want to stand up, you've been sitting there and you're starting to worry me. You're starting to look like pretzels. Okay, if you want to stand up while I'm talking, go ahead. So, you know, if one thing that the more I work with the community forum concept, which I'll explain in a minute, the more I'm convinced that today I wouldn't launch a newspaper or a website. I'd launch a forum. I'd be in the forum business. As our audience has gotten smaller, we've lost the ability to attract more audiences, and the conversation is the simplest forum to go after. And that's why I think this is a missing component of the newspaper model. And also, it's not just one more thing. Any of you who are working on projects to save the newspaper industry, or are working on newspapers to save yourself, or are working in academics for the next generation to save whatever's left, this can be bolted on to any one of your initiatives. It's not, it's inclusive, not exclusive. Be in the forum business. Next slide. Just a little bit of background. It's a neat organization. I have not found any of the rules written from NAM. I'm a contractor from NAM, but I'm proud to be a part of this. This is an initiative of Newspaper Association Managers, represents all the executive directors. The guy who makes it work is over there is Lynne. He's going to kill me for singling him out, but I have to because he's the glue of the organization. Executive directors, advertising, lobbyists, they sat around and they determined that tired of talking about things to do, let's do something. They came up with the Relevance Project, which I'm entirely grateful for. Next slide. You know, it's spiritual now. I found out the Pope was a big fan of Relevance. He went to the Vatican Media Center and blessed them out because their copy wasn't relevant. What better endorsement than the Pope? There you go. Okay. Please, Lord, make the technology work. Okay. So, in essence, he did. Spiritual. Okay. In essence, the overall Relevance Project does this. And notice how the Relevance Project puts communities. That's a theme here about putting communities first. I think the Report for America recently came back, made a huge finding about raising money and said, you're not going to get any money for saving newspapers. You will get money for saving communities. I think that's a huge orientation. That's why I'm in this community forum business. But it's the reinvigorated communities, because they pay for them and their newspapers, to launch the community forum throughout North America and in a sense, strengthen democracy. And as you said, lower D, I'm capitalizing it. Unleash press associations. I think the executive director of press associations is the most thankless job in American journalism right now. What they do on behalf of their members is unbelievable. It's really, hanging around those folks, my appreciation for that group of people just is huge. And then work on the collaboration and defining further what the strategy is, and more importantly, explain it. Next slide. In essence, when I'm talking about community forum, I'm talking at the core, holding town halls and forums. But you can hang a lot of ornaments on this tree. So if I had to describe why you would do these, there's three really linchpins or pillars. One, you can't trust the newspapers. That's supposedly our strength, but it could go away like tomorrow. We have got to explain ourselves. We've got to point out why we are important. We can't assume anymore. The media is all fractured. We've got to own that story. And we've got to own that story without being Pollyannas and without being a pain in the neck. We've got to be passionate about it so it's an attraction. We've got to be like a light for a lightning bug. The other thing, too, is we're sort of assuming that our news stories correct news literacy. Going back to the communities, using the community forum strategy, I would say a higher literacy in a community is another component of how a newspaper can thrive. Working on the community's media literacy with programs like the News Literacy Project and going after them in a more formative, focused basis is very important. You can also go after disinformation by explaining it. You can correct disinformation by writing about it. But more importantly, you can raise the media literacy so they understand it. They don't even need you, but they're going to gravitate towards you by nature if their literacy is high. So trust in newspapers, news literacy, and then community issues. When I was in Richmond, I did 78 public squares. I moderated them all. I can show you the warts, the tattoos, and the knots on my head. But it was the best damn thing that we did. Why? Because we involved the community first. We broke down the ivory tower, and we made it their discussion. We went after community issues that have failed at government level. Did they solve them all? No, but they got a fair shake. This whole issue of broken civil discourse, we're not going after it. We want to be known as the moderator of civil discourse for the whole point of enlightening democracy. Next slide. On the website, www.relevanceproject.net, www.relevanceproject.net, there's an A in relevance, by the way. There's a starter kit. There's 5 of these one-pagers that explain how you can run a community forum. In many aspects, if you follow these 5 pages, you just add water, voila. It's not easy moderating them. It's not going to get any easier if you don't moderate them. If I showed you the first 25 public squares that I did, it'd be a blooper film. But I learned. And the only reason why I was able to survive, 2 things. I respected the audience, and I encouraged the audience. And they knew the newspaper was there to report on the audience. What a megaphone. Sometimes their megaphone is not attached to the community's voice. The public square and the community. Next slide. Formats. Next slide. On time. I break it down into the who, what, where, and when of how to run these things. Simple points. How to run them by time, what? Sit-up, which is one of my favorites. This would not be my public square room. I would put a square in the middle of the room when I would walk in and be part of it. So little techniques like that. You can learn how to do these things. Next slide. The role of the moderator, all the tips. So what I'm saying is the Relevance Project, one of its major thrusts, in addition to building resources, complement the good work that Robert has done, and Lynne and everybody else in this room. But the real power, the real potion is the notion that newspapers are the community forum, that they're so engaged with their community, they're willing to listen. Nobody hears anybody anymore. The newspapers, as has gotten smaller, has gotten farther and farther away from their community. The community forum does 2 things. It rewards the readership you have by putting them into the issues that are important and giving them a chance to sounding boards and putting them in the newspaper and the websites when they comment. And allows you a very easy way to go after audiences you don't have, because all you're doing is staging a conversation and listening. And boy, you will learn what your next business move is because of that community forum strategy. So the moderator role is in a sense the newspaper or the local newsroom or the local publisher if they have any more publishers left. I think it's more like a dinosaur. So that's part of the 5 advices. Next one. So the pandemic has turned this news town hall thing upside down. So what am I after next? Building the virtual town halls. One, the good enough model using Zoom without it being dull, and also using a studio arrangement so you can become a producer. You can add that to yours. So that's my next goal after, because ideally the best forums are like this, in person, where you get to see each other. There'll be more gains made in the hallways than there are in presentations today because of your curiosity. That your community is no different than that. So instead of launching a newspaper with all the laborious stuff, conversation, use the community forum strategy and be the community forum strategy. You can do it in person, you can do it on Zoom, you can do it virtually, but do it and encourage it. And the press associations are in a right position, and the academics are in a right position. I think one thing that's missing that we learned, it's very difficult to add one more thing onto a newsroom. And I'm hoping maybe we need boot camps. Maybe there's not people like me who are strange who like to do this stuff. The biggest complaint I get from publishers is this: why would I want to get in a room? Everybody who's sending me those cranky emails and writes me those terrible letters. I have 2 reasons for it. I'd rather get it in person because you could do something with it, and knuckleheads get tired real easy. The community forum, be the community forum. It can bolt on to what you're doing. Talk to me about this. Happy to help you out. Be the community forum, because that's a business model that doesn't seem to have a lot of money, but it also has a lot of audience, and you can make a lot of money out of an audience. Questions? Yes. You ever notice where the mic is never where the mic is?
We have Jay Nolan over here on the wall. Okay.
Go ahead.
Tom Silvestri, it's Buck Ryan. I think I knew you in a whole nother
Wow,
life, brother.
Buck Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, macro.
But here's my question. And
Still
then
sitting in the back.
Then I have a follow-up, like a good Washington correspondent.
May need
So
some help out.
I knew the old Tom Silvestri. So where was the epiphany that brought you here? Because I'm totally with you, but there was some turning point for you to get this as your centerpiece. What
I
happened?
feel like there's a shaker moment coming right now. Actually, Al is the reason why I'm here. No, that's a great question. The master of questions. You don't know, Buck. Spent a lot. Here's the epiphany. Publisher. I did every new person to a job does. They go out in the community and says, "What do you think about my paper?" Very good. I hate it. What do you think about my paper? You mean the Times disgrace? What do you think about my paper? Oh yeah, well, you threw the paper on my roof once. What do you think? It was depressing. And I went back and said, boy, what's the next job? But I had been in a leadership program, Leadership Metro Richmond, where we use civil discourse to solve problems, particularly in Richmond, the former capital of the Confederacy. Tough questions. I learned from there that the only reason you make a connection is you give up your time and your real estate. So I decided to launch these community conversations for 2 reasons. I had to go after this negative atmosphere over it, and my building was locked. Nobody could come to the building. We don't want the people in there. So symbolically, the first floor auditorium became the open arms of the newspaper. And I thought it would make us a better newspaper, and I thought that if people felt so strongly and hated us so much, they would come and see a different side of us. And so over 15 years, that's exactly what happened. We had unbelievable topics. We had gun control, where the goal was to keep both sides in the room. That's how bad the topic was. But somebody has to do it. So the epiphany was, I felt bad that everybody hated us, and I didn't know what to do. But there's this technique called forums, where if you got in front of people, it could like a spark, and at least people would know you listened. And boy, that went from hate to I got a problem, and then I got an idea, or I got a solution, and they became more engaging. This listening thing is huge.
I think it's awesome, and just excuse me, Bill Horner, put that hand down. I have my follow-up. Okay, so anyway, Tom, the late great Cole Campbell sent me to West Virginia to study a methodology out of the Kettering Foundation for public deliberation and so on. So there's a lot of history and organization about public dialogue toward public problem solving. So where did you get your inspiration for this model?
It's partly from the Miller Center at UVA.
Okay.
Former Governor Gerald Balios ran it, and he was after civil discourse. That's why I had a slide on formats. I also felt that, and also going to too many government meetings or public hearings or execution at dawn, how poorly the public was treated in their 2 minutes and nobody listened, and so there was an alternative. But actually the Miller Center and using debates, panels, pros and cons, they helped the formats, and some of them and then we realized we had to have at least 30 minutes of public comment or people wouldn't come. One of the main reasons they came, they were curious, but they wanted to speak. They were curious, they wanted to listen. So there are lots of models out there.
Jane Olin.
We have a question about methodology, and I know you've listed some resources there, but how did you determine what your topics would be and what promoted the biggest turnouts?
Easy. Play off the news. That way the newsroom provides all the information before the community forum. So let's pick a topic. Let's pick a topic, a controversial new performing arts center where people are at each other's throats, and we're going to have a public square on the pros and cons as to whether they move forward. Newsroom kicks in a week to 2 weeks before the big takeout. It's got it all down. Then we give a week for their response, so they come fully informed, so they're offering their solutions. That's usually how we did. We played off the news, and then we got tired of the news. We pulled an unusual one out of our hat. Best one we did. 400 people showed up behind the scenes of the movie Lincoln, which was filmed in Richmond. We tried to get Spielberg, but he was busy. So we found actors who played bit roles in the back, including our editor, who was in the death scene because he had a weird beard.
Next question, hand the mic to Frank Taylor, and then we'll hand it to Penny for the last one.
I had a quick comment and a question. The comment is just that we've done a lot with events too, and one of the things, I think you touched on this a little bit, but I just wanted to observe is you disarm some of these difficult people. Now some trolls you're never going to get to, but you disarm these people when you're like, oh, they actually care what I think. And suddenly they stop being quite so adversarial when they realize that with events. My other question, though, is a slightly different direction on this, thinking about relevance.
Can I quickly respond to that?
Yeah, please do, sorry.
So, newspaper supporters, readers, subscribers, advertisers are uniform in this. If they're mad at you, you did something to them. It may have happened 15 years ago, 10 years ago, yesterday, and it's still in the back of their heads because you're their supporter. You get to fix that. This person hasn't read you, hasn't bought in a paper, hasn't bought in advertising. You get a chance to introduce yourself to that person in person. Might have been attracted. I was asked, do you read the paper? And they say, no. I don't try to sell them the subscription. I try to listen.
Okay, Penny, and then I have one last question.
I'm sorry, I interrupted one question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll go quick. I asked this question as the father of a daughter who's turning 22 tomorrow. How big of a relevance problem do we have generationally? I know we talk about it with every generation, but I really worry about with the current one.
Yeah, huge. And to the point where we made sure that we called the local universities and invited a class to every public square because we realized we would fort by just using our resources to invite people in. So you've got to mix it up. It's huge. Actually, topics by their nature, you pick topics that by their nature that are diverse? What do you think of the most diverse topic in America? What do you think is a diverse topic that by nature will draw young, old, and middle class, or middle age, sorry? Well, healthcare is probably good. Housing. We had affordable housing without any prompting, and we had the community in there. So you have to pick the community. You have to pick the topics that attract them. Yes.
So Tom, how can you tie this back into election coverage? And I say that is one of the roles that Metro papers have played historically is vetting candidates. I hear from tons of League of Women voters who are very concerned that they send out questionnaires, nobody answers them. The other problem we have too is that many of papers aren't even vetting candidates anymore. So how do you tie back in the topics that have done that with election?
Yeah, that's a great question, because Kiplinger recently documented the number of major elections in states where candidates are refusing to debate. And usually the League of Women Voters was key in that. So there's a huge opportunity right now for local news to go after this. The conventional thinking is to hold your debate and hold their feet to the fire and get them there, wear them down. The unconventional thinking says, let's turn this around. Well, maybe you don't need the candidates who won't talk to engage their public. Maybe you need the voters in the room. So maybe you should have series of voter without the candidates and what they want, and keep hammering that, and then do a scorecard to match up with what you heard and who's doing what. That's an open question right now. I've got some ideas, but I would love to experiment first about how to go after it.
And one last question.
Thanks, Al. Tom, Bill Horner from the Chatham News and Record, North Carolina. Two quick questions. One is, there's a lot of discussion in the industry about events and monetizing events. So is there a monetization piece? And then secondly, I know in our market, even as COVID has waned a little bit, a lot of the organizations that are doing events are having a virtual element. So there's still a lot of folks who are doing Zoom only. So do you do a virtual piece to your forums?
Yeah, we didn't do it at the time. I retired in 2019. I retired right into the pandemic. But to your point, when I said hang a lot of ornaments, paid community events, once you get the community forum down on the news side, you can move the same format into paid events. You could have, book authors, celebrities. I mean, you can move right into that environment. This community forum works also with gathering advertisers. We did one. We were the only ones to invite all the healthcare providers to do one thing: talk about what they're up against. They talk in their own little companies. They may go to a convention where they talk to people but they never talk to their friends across the fence. So we did that. So yes, I didn't get there, make any money off the public square, but you could get a sponsor for it, a major sponsor for it. So there's money there. I've stopped because I don't want to be the one who knows everything and anything or everything about it, because the best public square or the best community forum is probably somebody's audience who's figured out because they know their community. More importantly, they know what they don't know about their community. So I would love to talk to you. I've got a 9-hour drive back to Richmond, so I would like to stay for a while. Anybody wants to talk in the break, anything like that. Got lots of useless information.
Let's give Tom a hand. Which is going to be about putting philanthropy in your business model. And if our panelists will come up, I will introduce them as they come forward. Nathan Payne is a regional editor overseeing a newly launched rural health team for Kaiser Health News. He worked 17 years in local news, including as the regional editor for investigations for CNHI and as executive editor for the Traverse City Record Eagle. In those roles, he worked to build partnerships with Report for America and within the Michigamme